Good evening. This is America's Mayor Live, and we are at the Trump International Golf Course in West Palm Beach, Florida. As you can see, if you had been watching the early show, there was a beautiful scene behind us of the last hole of the golf course. And now, of course, it's become jet black and it's raining. And you can hear in the deep background some thunder and lightning. And who knows, by 8:30, it'll be clear and nice and beautiful again. That's Florida, and that's what Palm Beach is like. They're having a tournament here all day for the Tunnel to Towers. And as soon as we take probably take a short break in a little while, we're going to have with us John Huvane, who was my business partner. He was the chief of my security when I was mayor. And he now works very closely with Tunnel to Towers, and he also does security work in various parts of the world, in particular in the Dominican Republic, which we were going to ask him about. So you hang on. We're also going to try to see if we can get the results for you in Wisconsin and in Florida. As we said on the earlier show, those are three elections. Strangely, particularly the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, have a great deal to do with what's going to happen with our Congress. The Wisconsin Supreme Court has the ability over the next year to do a redistricting, to change the to gerrymander. The only thing I can say about the Wisconsin Supreme Court, when it's held by Democrats, it's off the charts crooked. Their decision in the 2020 election is close to, is so intellectually dishonest, it could only have been written by dishonest people. I'm not going to describe it all to you, except they concluded really that Trump won, but that in order to disqualify the ballots, it would be too strict a penalty. That's like saying the guy stole and he's got to go to jail for 3 years, but that's too strict a penalty, so we'll let him get away with the stealing. They also decided that Catholic Charities shouldn't be considered a religious organization because they do charitable work, and religion encompasses ceremony and teaching, but not charitable work. They obviously have never read the gospel of Jesus Christ, right? In which charitable work. Now electing judges who destroy our Constitution. So please, if you can still vote in Wisconsin, please make sure we keep that court Republican. I think the voting is over at 8 in Wisconsin, if I recall correctly. I think the voting is over here at 8 also. So we have 2 congressional seats, one to replace Gates and the other to replace Walz. The Gates seat looks very safe, and the Walz seat looks safe, but at the very last minute, a certain amount of anxiety because the polls got a lot closer. So we should know shortly. But we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll have John with us. Shall we set it up over here? Where are we going to put them?
I'll be put.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax, channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code Rudy. Act fast. These deals are selling out.
Yeah. Wow.
And how does first?
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're gonna go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee. Welcome back to America's Mayor Live, and we are not creating that scene in the background. That's for real. That's thunder and lightning in probably further out in West Palm. Maybe it could even be in the Everglades if you go look in that direction. But I have with me John Huvane. John, well, I'll tell you briefly John's career. John was a New York City police officer, a very brave and very decorated New York City police officer. He was then head of my detail, my security detail, and then we were in business together for a long time, doing security work all over the world, which John is now doing in Dominican Republic for sure. But he's also doing a great deal of work for Tunnel to Towers, and that's why he's here tonight. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about Tunnel to Towers? I think everyone knows it, but it's worth reminding them.
Yeah, everybody knows the basic story of how it was formed after the loss of Stephen Siller in 2001. And I always remember Richie Shearer coming into your office and saying, I have this guy from Staten Island. He's very persistent. His name is Frank Siller. And he wants to do a memorial race. And the mayor, when I tell you, he started 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
We go to 3 or 4 funerals, then wakes at night. And he was rolling around and he's like, wait a second. You want me to close down part of the tunnel to do a memorial race? Well, Frank Siller.
The tunnel we had just given to the FBI because they were moving the debris from the site.
Yes, sir.
Out to Staten Island, where they could more carefully examine it as a crime scene.
Correct.
And as well as looking for body parts, but also looking for any indications of, how it all happened.
The evidence, yes, sir.
And the FBI, didn't want anybody in that tunnel.
Not at all. And you work very well with the governor.
Mm-hmm.
I always remember traveling back from Australia and we saw what was going on in New Orleans, and you turned to me and said, John, this is going to be a disaster. I said, why's that? Because police commissioner's given a briefing, the mayor's given a briefing, and the governor's given a briefing, and they're all separate.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But you were able to bring all the different federal agencies, all the different local and state agencies together. And
we should tell them that Frank Siller, whose family started Tunnel to Towers in honor of Stephen Siller,
yes, sir.
was able within 5 minutes to talk me out of it.
Yeah, and
he
that's
just sat down and told me the story, and I said, "You got the tunnel, you got whatever tunnel you want," and from then on, we've been very closely associated with him. Right,
you've been a big supporter, and the mayor, he talked about you tonight as somebody that was there from the beginning, and you got a lot of applause. And it was like on the way over here, I was with Dennis Quaid, and he said, "I remember going into New York City when the mayor was there." He goes, "What a different city! It's a shame." And it took your 8 years and Mike Bloomberg with a different approach, but we had 20 years of good governance, and it only took de Blasio 8 years to destroy it.
Mm-hmm.
And, that hard work that you did and you turned it around, I know it broke your heart.
Remember the funeral when they turned their back on him?
That was Lou and Ramos.
Yeah. That's why I brought it up. And
in 2014.
You were with me at that funeral, and you can explain what happened, because it led to Frank now doing something really absolutely wonderful.
Well, we went into Detective Lou's home, and the father was devastated. The whole family.
Detective Lou was killed, really ambushed, assassinated. Yes. He and Ramos were sitting in a car guarding a housing development, like in Brooklyn.
That is correct.
And this guy came from Baltimore up to New York.
Yeah.
The police believe, largely because de Blasio had announced that our police force was just as racist as their police force.
And I agree with you. And I gave a speech the other night, and I said, in front of the major cities conference, and I said, that mayor was the direct result of losing two great people.
I mean, there'd be no reason to come to New York.
Lou and Ramos.
He could have gone to Philadelphia. He could have stayed in Baltimore. He could have gone to Washington, D.C. He came to New York because just shortly before de Blasio announces that we were a racist police department, which is completely untrue.
Yeah.
But at that point, New York City wasn't even a majority white police department anymore.
No, it reflected the community.
The racial problems of the New York City Police Department, if they ever existed, were a thing of the past.
Mm-hmm.
Which he resurrected because he never mind about him. But we went to see Detective Ramos, and
you actually called me up, and you were a mayor. That's what people don't understand. You are not the mayor.
Right, we were in business together.
And you said, I want to go see these families. So when we went to see the Lou family, you sat there and ate with the father because he wasn't eating. And they said, Mayor, would you sit and eat with him? And you said, yeah. And he ate. And it was the first time he ate in a couple of days. And we get back in the car. He looked at me, he said, get Frank Siller. I called Frank Siller. You're like, Frank, we got to help these families. And Frank goes, I'm on it. Let's do it. And, you and I went to those funerals. And to show you the total disregard and dishonor that they had for the NYPD is Mayor de Blasio's wife showed up in blue jeans. In blue jeans. At a very sad time in New York City.
Yeah, I mean, these two families were very, very old-fashioned Hispanic and an old-fashioned Chinese. The father spoke very little English, you remember?
Very little.
His the daughter or the sister was interpreting for us.
And you had established an amazing family relations group in the NYPD, and they were with him 24/7. And to this day, the Lou and Ramos family is very connected with the Tunnel Towers. But the key point is that was the first responders that we did.
Right. And Frank, within a day, he got the mortgage
Paid off and fixed the
and
house.
then he decided to do it for everybody.
And he fixed the house. But
Now he's done it for thousands.
but you were able to stir that enthusiasm of helping our fallen.
Yeah.
And I always remember when we'd have to call you at 3 a.m. and head out to a shooting. You know, you were hands-on, and you know that's a testimony to you.
Well,
and you're also the chairman of the race, and we do the 5K every Sunday. Last Sunday in
so I
September.
think that first year when I caved in and gave him the tunnel was about 1,000 people, 800.
Yeah, it wasn't many, and now
it's 30, 40,000.
yeah, exactly. and you know it's amazing sitting around a kitchen table and following, you know, St. Francis and brothers and sisters while we have time. Let us do good, and just to think about the people. And I'm a numbers guy. You taught me to be a numbers guy, and I can recite how many guys we're bringing into our smart home programs. 3 years ago, we had 6 that we were building. Then we got it up to 30. We have 178 in process right now this year, and we have 757 applications that are being reviewed. These are fallen first. These are catastrophically injured first responders and our military. And you know, these guys have given more than they were ever. They wrote a blank check, and you know, it is our duty to take care of these families and give them back their freedom. And you know, we're well over 400 since 2014 paid mortgages for fallen first responders. We have firefighters that are dying of toxins, young men, young women. To give you an idea, sir, last week, Wednesday, I'm going through the news and I see we're missing 4 military guys in a NATO training. So we still don't know where those military guys are. And we lost a New York City cop, 2 Californians and 1 Louisiana in a matter of days. And it's an epidemic. The sense of lawlessness, and Tom Huvane came down and spoke to us.
Oh, that's good.
And Rochester was there. So he gets up and he starts talking and he goes, Rochester, I understand you're here. And he goes, yeah, well, tell him I'm coming. And he meant it. And he's going to be up in Rochester doing the Lord's work, taking care of our.
Are they a sanctuary city?
They are indeed.
Well, do you know Rochester 2 years ago set a record for the most murders in Rochester's history?
It's amazing.
And per capita, I don't know if they have. I probably even now they have more. They're more dangerous than New York City.
They are, and think about
Rochester, New York, probably one of the safest cities in New York State. 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah, but when you get a police commissioner going up there and saying, I'm gonna investigate these cops, what did they do? They called there by other law enforcement to help. And all he did was get the individual out of the car. There was no excessive force. They handcuffed him and turned him over to the federal authorities. Everybody that wears a shield takes an oath. And we will never, if you're a good cop and like your Uncle Rudy and your whole family, they take an oath, and we're going to serve.
Right.
And we're going to do what we do. And, you know, so what? And then he looked at these guys from Chicago. And he goes, anybody here from Chicago? And a couple of guys.
Good.
He looked. I remember you and I always going to Chicago.
He's talking about Tom.
I always remember when I going to Chicago, go to Coach's, Mike Dicker's place for a steak. And then we'd walk back. And I was talking to their PBA, the FOP leader, and he said, don't do that now. He goes, the $1 million mile, he goes, it's a shell of what it was.
Yeah.
And these policies are killing our inner cities. And it affects me as a senior vice president in the foundation, because I run those programs for Frank, and I take care of everything but the homeless vets, which is an amazing thing that Frank is doing with
Another tragedy.
a tragedy. And we take care of these families, but it's because of bad leadership.
Yeah. It shouldn't happen.
It shouldn't happen. And thank God President Trump is where he is, and we'll get some normalcy back. And you know, it's not being a heavy hand. As when we were in El Salvador, they called it the heavy hand, Maduro, and everything. No, this is common sense. This is just doing what you do to protect the elderly. I always remember you talking about Washington Heights, and you said the old people have a right. They have rights. They should be allowed to go sit in the public spaces. The young children should be able to go to and from school without passing a drug den. And you cleaned up Washington Heights like nobody ever could imagine. And those small businesses, they thrived. And it became a really strong community. And it was because your leadership, but also putting the right people in place. And
Sure.
I think the president put Tom Huvane in place, who is gonna do amazing work.
So now we have about 280 of the Trinidad people from Venezuela in the prison in El Salvador. And the left-wing judge, Asberg, who's the chief judge of the District of Columbia, who's put a bunch of and he wants to bring them all back.
Well, you and I went to El Salvador.
He wants to bring them all as rapists back. What does he think they're going to do? They're going to murder and rape.
Yeah, well, you and I went to El Salvador, and we worked on the MS-13 and Battery 018.
Yes.
And they knew the law. They understood if they had a 13-year-old commit a homicide, that child is not going to be prosecuted. That's still systemic down there. And at the time, the United States built a maximum prison, and they wouldn't put the really bad guys in those jails. And I always remember getting yelled at by the ambassador, Ponte.
Yeah.
And she goes, "You don't understand the El Salvador Constitution." I says, I'm sorry, ma'am, I do. And I pulled it out. And you looked at me. I'm like, I'm going to come to a country. I'm going to read that Constitution. But that was the lessons you taught me. Prepare. And you used to say for every hour in court, you would do what, 10 hours?
Yeah, 4 hours of preparation.
4 hours of preparation.
Yeah, you got to prepare.
And you got to prepare. And you have to know what you're talking about.
So John is working now in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
And the Dominican community makes up most of Washington Heights. They were.
Yeah.
And they are a very wonderful group of people who are very entrepreneurial, really want to work. And they were being just, nobody was policing the place. They were letting crack. In those days, crack cocaine go.
Yeah.
And now you've got
corruption.
You've got a governor, right?
The president
of Puerto Rico,
the Dominican Republic,
who's
Luis
very
Abinader.
dedicated. I remember he got in trouble about a year ago because he wouldn't let the Haitians come in anymore.
Yeah, but you know what he did? He built the wall. He loves Trump.
I can't do it anymore. He said, "Look, I feel very bad for the Haitian people,
but nobody's helping me.
I have to take care of the Dominican people. It's just fundamental. If everybody would take care of their own people, we'd be fine."
And Mayor, you'd appreciate this, talking about the diversity of the NYPD. There are 6,000 sworn officers of Dominican heritage serving in the NYPD.
Well, I think they were absolutely, all they needed was, so I remember, you'll probably remember this. So before I was mayor, when we were out of office for a while, right? They had a big riot in Washington Heights.
Oh, yeah.
Kiko Garcia.
Kiko
Garcia was a drug dealer who committed a murder of a police officer. And for 4 days in the Daily News, he was pictured as a choir boy, altar boy, sweet. Why did the officer kill him? Riots break out. They're burning things down, shooting people. The fire trucks couldn't go to put out the fires. They had to put a grating on the top of the fire truck so they wouldn't get hurt. Okay. I'm sitting in my house. I'm out of office then, and I read in the newspaper, the Daily News, which is a really newspaper. I read in the newspaper the mother feels terrible that Kiko got killed because, Kiko went out that day. He didn't want to cause any trouble for anyone. He left his gun at home. She says that in the newspaper.
Yeah.
He left his gun at home. So I called Phil Caruso at the PBA, and I said, Phil, damn it, this guy's got to be a bad guy.
Yeah.
What does he have a gun for at home? He says he is a bad guy. He's got a big long record. They won't put it out.
Yeah.
I said, you give it to me. I'll put it out.
Yeah. And
a record, 48 arrests. He was the head of a little drug gang. And there were videos that the cops were holding back. This is zero. The cops were holding back that proved that the police officer acted himself. The riot was completely for nothing.
I think
the riot was for nothing. It was for fake news.
That was also O'Keefe. And Dinkins' answer to that was, well, we'll have the city pay for the funeral. We'll transport him back to his country of origin. And we paid it. And that was the only way of dealing with it and saying, we'll just pay for this drug dealer's funeral. Can you believe that? That we actually paid a drug dealer's funeral.
Who actually deliberately killed a police officer. And Dinkins and his police commissioner kept secret the facts that showed that it was 100% justifiable self-defense. Now, 5 years later, there was a blackout in Washington Heights.
Correct.
And when we have a blackout in the past, under Lindsay and under Koch, we had riots.
Always.
Looting like crazy. Looting. I mean, if you ever seen the movie about the blackout, looting. So I was afraid there might be looting. And it was mostly Washington Heights, the Columbia area, and north of that. We put like 600-700 cops up there, but we didn't deploy them.
Nope.
We put them on the side in case needed. It wasn't a single serious crime all night. The Dominican community acted like angels. They completely changed.
Yeah, because
completely changed.
Your
We didn't
leadership.
need no arrests, no looting, no rapes, no nothing. Just complete law and order. Because they knew they had to be careful because it was a dangerous situation for them and their families.
Right, and think about the appointments.
Changed completely.
You read the Crown Heights riot report, and you read to see which individuals did what they were supposed to do. That led to the rise of Louis Adamone, John Temeny. There was 2 or 3 other guys, Boomer, and you picked guys that would protect the citizens.
They wouldn't let a pogrom happen. I mean,
or take a bridge.
Yeah, Crown Heights was going around trying to kill Jews. Black people going around trying to kill Jews.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted to deal with it because of racism. Well, are you crazy? Racism?
Yeah. And
that's not racism. That's murder.
And the terrorist attack happened on the Brooklyn Bridge. And I remember being in the car with you. And you drive by and you see one little sign. You named that ramp. Going on the Brooklyn Bridge after Ari, and you said, wait a second. You called up whoever the Department of Transportation was. I want to see at least 6, 7 that we remember what happened here.
Harry Halberstam was the Hasidic boy that was shot and killed by an Islamic terrorist. And clearly a terrorist act. It took forever to get the federal government to agree that it was a terrorist act.
Yeah.
He killed him. He shot at a group of Jewish students at a time in which there had been a shooting in about 2 days after a shooting in Israel. And he was aimed at a certain place, turned on the Brooklyn Bridge, and he shot into a bus, a school bus.
A school bus, yeah.
And we caught him in one day.
And that's because you revamped the NYPD. And I'm able to work down in the Dominican Republic, stealing all your ideas and instituting CompStat. And
God bless you.
And you know who sits on that meeting every Monday morning is the president. Now, this is a president. You and I took him to the first inauguration of President Trump.
Mm-hmm.
You supported President Trump during this tragedy with this young girl drowned.
Yeah.
First thing he did, he's brought the FBI in. He's partners with the United States. He is working wholeheartedly with the United States, but he follows everything that you did, and he sat there talking to you for hours, just taking your ideas and understanding domestic violence.
They focus on some of the bad ones, and South America and Latin America. We have we've got some very good people there in El Salvador now. Thank God.
El Salvador actually woke up. They
That
were
guy
like,
is terrific.
yeah, he's a heavy hand. It was actually the advice that we gave them, but it took a couple elections later to understand what we had to do. And I always remember being in India when we were trying to explain to the different 5,000 police departments that they had in India, you guys need weapons.
Yeah.
And then what happened? The attack in Mataj.
Yeah.
And we had warned them.
It was right
And-
after we came back.
Yeah, we were there, and we had warned them, you have to arm your police, and it was just to protect the people.
Well, we're going to have to run, but next time I put John on, we're going to talk about when we had a horse meet in Kazakhstan.
My stomach's still not right, sir.
I got home. I was sick on the couch. I couldn't go to work. I called him up. They said he was home, sick on the couch.
I didn't know what projectile diarrhea was until that day.
On that note, we'll be right back. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
To celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're gonna go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's Coffee. And we are back. This is Rudy Giuliani back with America's Mayor live in the rain at the Trump International Golf Course in rainy Palm Beach as they finish the wonderful dinner for Tunnel to Towers. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with my old buddy,
that title, huh?
John, who was with me for 20 years. Oh, gosh almighty.
That's good.
I hope the stories were interesting to you. They were interesting to me.
Thanks to this one, right?
I guess, you know, every day we keep getting reaffirmed, Ted and I, in our selection of Columbia as the biggest Jew-hating college in America. And I don't know, they put a new one in now that has some questions as well. Maybe they can't find somebody
Maybe that's right, Mayor.
So I don't know if
Maybe it's the
these
selection
things,
committee.
I'm not going to report them because I don't know if the things about Claire Shipman are true or not, but there are already some issues that have come up now.
Turn this down.
Let's hope they're not correct. Let's hope that they're not correct. But yesterday they had a big thing there where they were tearing up their diplomas, which, I mean, great, tear them up. Given what you've done to the reputation of Columbia, the diploma is not worth very much. I mean, you really have to realize, and a lot of very scholarly articles have been written, when you see this, you realize that this also represents the deterioration of classical education. It means many of these people have not received an education that they paid for. They don't know Western history. It's a vague nothing to them. They really don't know what's going on in the Middle East. They've got, Israel's a big occupier, and the Palestinians are poor, underprivileged people like the African slaves. Well, I'm sorry, the African slaves weren't terrorists. The African slaves didn't come and kill women and children and have the families watch the death of the children. They didn't hijack, well, they didn't have airplanes then, but they didn't hijack airplanes and take them down. And their leaders didn't steal millions and billions of dollars from them and set up both terrorist organizations and organized crime groups that imperil the rest of the world. They were truly victims. These people are really the oppressors, and they've accomplished the Marxist Orwellian trick of flipping a language. The oppressed, the Jewish people, become the oppressor. The oppressors, terrorists, become the oppressed. And to prove they're the oppressor, they're not wanted in the rest of the Arab world, which is a problem that President Trump has run into with the idea that they shouldn't be in Gaza because nobody else wants them. He can't seem to get Sisi to move on that. There were several articles saying we should cut off their foreign aid. We give, aside from the massive, unprecedented, earth-shattering amount of money that we gave to the second most crooked country in the world, Ukraine, so supposedly for its war. Generally, the most aid that we give is to Israel and second to Egypt. And Egypt will not take any of these Gazans. And I didn't say Hamas, I said Gazans, because they know what I know and what any sensible person knows who isn't ignorant, isn't brainwashed, isn't prejudiced. And that is that these people, whatever they could have been or might have been, were taught from the time they were born to hate Jews, to hate Americans, and to kill them. The girls were taught how to kill. And it would be the unusual one, and there are some. I mean, they did have a demonstration against Hamas the other day, and you'll see an occasional Palestinian or Gazan who will come out against them, but it's very, very rare. And even when you take polls, even the ones that are not terrorists support them by 80 and 90%. Now, I don't say this to malign them unnecessarily. I say this in order to tell you the truth, which is what we're about. We're about giving you the truth that you don't get anywhere else. The best proof of how dangerous they are is that Egypt and Jordan will not take them, even though that's where they really come from. Yasser Arafat was an ethnic Egyptian. Sisi won't allow him back in. Now, it's really hard to force him to do it. My, sanctions and whatever, since. And please bear with me for a moment. It takes a little concentration to learn history. The Palestinians, and particularly Hamas, emerged as a terrorist group as part of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. The Muslim Brotherhood are the people that deposed the government of Egypt and are attempting to overthrow Sisi and kill him now. So if he brings the Palestinians in, he brings in natural allies of the Muslim Brotherhood who support them. Now you wonder about Jordan. Why doesn't the king of Jordan? Jordan took 600 children. Now their contribution was 600 children. You say to yourself, now why doesn't the king of Jordan take them? Because they killed his grandfather. That's why. And because he had to throw 1 million of them out, which led to the destruction of Lebanon. Nobody wants them. Saudi Arabia will not do a peace agreement with Israel until the Palestinian problem is solved. But they won't take a single Palestinian. They don't want this problem. They got a big enough problem with their own street. So I don't know how you solve this problem. I mean, I thought the way to solve it at the very beginning, when they started with this ridiculous two-state solution, was rather than Israel giving them a land just by itself, for Israel and Egypt and Jordan to equally contribute land. So on the southern part of Israel, you'd give them a little land, and then Egypt would give them more. And then in the way up in the Jordan part, you'd give them a big chunk of Jordan. Just separate it from Jordan, make it Palestine. It's really their problem to solve. They threw them out and won't take them back. And maybe they got to section them off in an area in which they can police them. But it would be a lot easier on the world if the Arabs were policing other Arabs rather than the Jews having to police them, because they want to eliminate the Jewish people. But we'll go into that in more detail, right? Because we're not at the point of really solving it right now. We're at the point of ending the terrorism. Before you can solve it, you got to end the terrorism. And these people in the United States, these students in the United States who support Hamas, I mean, you should tear up their diplomas. They're stupid. They're, among other things, they're dangerous. They're aiding a murderous criminal organization that likes to kill Americans, among others. And finally, they're proving to you that they're so damn stupid. Just give them a 10-question test. I mean, what river and what sea? They'll fail that. That'll be 2 down right away. Where did Yasser Arafat come from? Bet they get that wrong. Well, I hope these Democrat judges take their noses out quickly, restore our three-branch government rather than we were not supposed to have a king, but now we have something like 500 or 600 Democrat judge kings. How does a judge in the District of Columbia issue an injunction for the whole country? He's only in the District of Columbia. How can he order New York to do something, or California, or where does that come from? Except the bastardization of our law and our Constitution by the Democrats. University of Minnesota, there's been another Muslim student who's being deported. They kept the facts kind of secret, the name, exactly what it is that she did, but she was supporting, aiding, and abetting Hamas. Oh gosh, there must be so many. Give you an idea of the level of violence that Democrats have brought us to. We know about the Tesla violence, which is despicable. It's absolutely despicable what they're doing. It's despicable on one case what they're doing to Elon Musk and his people, who are just doing a good job for us, and it's despicable that they're attacking people that really. A guy who buys a Tesla, you blow up his car. That's pure out and out terrorism. You throw Molotov cocktails into a Tesla showroom with people looking at cars. Out and out terrorism. That isn't First Amendment demonstrating. And the judge and the Democrat judge are protecting this? What are they, criminals? And then the president raises the issue of impeachment. Well, of course they should be impeached if they allow such things. They're not above impeachment. 15 of them have been impeached. 8 successfully, in the sense of thrown out. The Constitution doesn't make an exception for judges. They're right there with everybody else that can be impeached. And they even have right next to their tenure at good behavior, which congressmen don't have. There wouldn't be any. I don't know. This idea, and Roberts is guilty of this, this idea of elevating them to some level where they can't be treated like other public officials. I don't get it. Now, of course, you shouldn't do what Schumer does. You shouldn't threaten them with physical violence. But nor should you threaten a congressman or a senator or a president or me or you. But you should be able to criticize them as much as you want. I don't understand why it is improper to criticize a judge. I'm entitled to an opinion. He doesn't get a right to determine my opinion or her unless he's a dictator, which is what the left wing wants to do, but only for their positions. Well, in New Mexico, they set fire to the Republican headquarters. Just one example out of many of how, oh yeah, the real problem is white supremacy and white violence. When the hell was the last incident of white violence you've heard about? Gosh almighty, there have been thousands of left-wing violence. Every one of those damn riots in 2020, they burned a building down. Oh, but they were peaceful riots. All the university riots at Harvard, they were burning something every day. Ted and I used to go see it. Yeah, peaceful protesting my backside. And there's white. The violence is instigated by the left. And because they're communists and they're Marxists. We'll be right back. I think they've all left.
To celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely.
Commercial.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal, 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast. These deals are selling out.
Welcome back. This is Rudy Giuliani. This is America's Mayor Live. And I guess we're learning a lot about tariffs now, aren't we? And I think really what you're watching is a battle between, they often would say Wall Street and Main Street. And I would say you're watching a battle between the elite and you might want to call it Main Street or the regular people. The reality is that tariffs are good and bad depending on how you use them, and it isn't as if the Wall Street Journal treats tariffs like they're murder, which is inherently wrong. A tariff can be a very good thing, and a tariff can be a very bad thing. The Smoot-Hawley tariffs that helped to accelerate the depression, didn't create it, were terrible mistake. Other tariffs are brilliant. For example, the tariff that didn't have to be used with Mexico that led to Mexico just now allowing us to police the border, in which they brought 10,000 troops up there, are cooperating with us and working with us, allowed us to, in a minute, reinstate the Remain in Mexico program, and a number of other things. The use of that tariff, the ad terrorem effect of it, if you want to call it that, or the negotiating effect of that, was brilliant. Or if somebody places 100% tariff on us, which is a punitive tariff, then putting 100% tariff on them is defending our industries. Maybe we'd still have a vital, tremendous car industry like we used to have if we defended ourselves. Maybe we'd still have the steel industry that we had before. You want a real shocker? We don't build ships in America anymore. And I was talking to someone who's a real expert on this, who said to me, well, it's going to be hard for us to do it again because we don't have welders. And we got to go to South Korea to ask them for help. And South Korea is in a bit of a revolution between the Marxists who are trying to take over for the Chinese communists and North Korea. I don't know if we're going to keep South Korea. And that's another subject that we can spend quite a bit of time on. The auto tariffs. The president was asked the other day. I don't know if we got a link of this or him saying it, but he was asked, this may raise. You put 25% tariff on all the foreign cars, it may raise the price of automobiles. He said, well, I couldn't care less. Maybe, then they'll buy the cars in America. Whatever happened to Made in America? What happened to it is the left-wing Republicans and Democrats, the free trade jackasses, because free trade makes all the sense in the world if it's fair trade. Free trade, if you're having your pants taken off, is because you're an idiot. You're a Ivy League, left-wing, silly, stupid liberal. That's the elite versus Main Street. The president of the UAW, who hates Trump, hates him for all the wrong reasons, I'm sure, but gave a speech the other day saying that for the first time, he sees a chance that we're going to have jobs back in the auto industry in the kinds of numbers that can support families. This is what he used to call Trump: a scab, a con man, a champion of corporate greed. Here's the statement the other day. We applaud the Trump administration for stepping up to end the free trade disaster that have devastated working class communities for decades. This is really standing up for the forgotten American. These are families that go back a generation or two that can trace the loss of their grandfather's job, their father's job, whether it's in the steel industry or the coal industry. China is mining and using all the coal that it wants. The fact that we don't use our coal does nothing for anything. We certainly have a way to now use it and protect against pollution. Tell me exactly if in fact carbon that becomes excessive because of coal has something to do with climate change, and that's a debatable fact. But if it does, then how are we reducing it by letting China do it and we don't do it? It's having no impact on it at all. except it's ruining our economy and it's killing jobs for people, which have been in their family for 5 generations. And you say, well, they should get better jobs. Well, who the hell are you to say that? Maybe this is what they want to do with their life. What about the steel industry in Pittsburgh? There almost is no steel industry. Trump saved it. And we better be making our own steel. I mean, there also is the issue here of, even if it costs us something of a premium, we have to be independent in this world. We have several fierce enemies. One that seems to understand this really, really well, cornering the market. Didn't it shock you during the pandemic that 90% of our medicines come from China? That they had hoarded all the PPP? Of course, they did that on purpose because they knew what they were going to do to us. We can't let that happen to us again. We can't let them be the only ones who make chips. We can't have Taiwan be the only one that makes the sophisticated chips for the supercomputers. These are things that he's changed. He's moved a lot of that industry, or is in the process of moving out of the industry to the United States. Tariffs have something to do with that. The head of Hyundai put his factories in America, and he explained it straight out. They didn't reprint this in the Wall Street Journal because they know better than the head of Hyundai what's good for them. He said, well, I moved all those places to America so I could escape the tariff. But the editorial writer in the Wall Street Journal doesn't understand that, because he's never run a business. He's never done anything practical in his life. He obviously went to a very, very overrated school. We find that out now. Probably got a very poor education, and is pretentious as all hell. And maybe he should adjust some of his opinion to the opinion of the head of Hyundai. I mean, at least that tariff worked, didn't it? Well, if automobiles are going to cost a little bit more, the end result is we have a much more robust automotive industry. We have many, many more auto workers. And if we workers, we have many more people airplanes. We damn well airplanes, and better be number one in it. And we're back to being number one in shipbuilding. We can't count on anybody else but ourselves, particularly with the spread of the illness of Marxism. I don't know where the hell Great Britain is going. They've got a prime minister who sounds to me like a wacky, crazy, dangerous Marxist. They have a country that puts somebody in jail for thinking the wrong things, bad thoughts. Germany looks like, they're accusing the right-wing party of being neo-Nazi. It looks like what the Democrats do. They're the ones who are putting people in jail for speech. And then they're accusing the right-wing party of being neo-Nazi, and they can't seem to find anybody that's neo-Nazi. Sounds like the same projection the Democrats do here in America. They accuse Trump of Russian collusion. They were doing Ukrainian collusion, and Trump wasn't doing anything. They come from the same core, the same Marxist training, the same training that Obama and Hillary got in America in Marxism, they got in England and in Italy and in Germany. And then one of the things that they've done, China brilliantly and the Marxists brilliantly, is sell this one world concept, which has been at the core of their thinking from the beginning. It goes back to Woodrow Wilson, who introduced communists into our government, who really made the first big move in completely destroying our constitutional form of government by starting to create a fourth branch of government. Well, I mean, it's amazing that the UAW boss backs the tariff big time. The credible threat of moving more factory work to Mexico, where the UAW says auto workers earn as little as $3 an hour, has loomed large over labor talks in Detroit for years. In the U.S., auto assembly jobs pay on average about $35 an hour. 6 months ago, it would have been hard to imagine Fain applauding Trump for anything. He led a 6-week strike at General Motors, at Ford, and Stellantis. Well, in Louisville, Kentucky, auto workers at Ford's heavy-duty truck plant understand Fain's goal of bringing back more production to the U.S., said Todd Dunn, president of the UAW local at the factory. So this has to do with the long-term strength of our economy and of our ability to protect ourselves so that we're ready for any eventuality. We're too big a nation, too great a nation, and we're too important to the whole world to take the risk that somebody can overwhelm us. They don't realize it because of the effect of Marxism and maybe ego and everything else. But it's much more important that we survive strong and powerful than it is any other country on earth. I don't mean ill for any of them, but none of them are going to do what we do. Have any of them ever done what we've done for the rest of the world? Do any of them have a core philosophy that really can uplift human beings? With our great founding fathers who are maligned by these communists, and I mean, we should go kiss the feet of Thomas Jefferson, and George Washington, and John Adams, and James Madison. If they had frailties and made mistakes because they were men and women of their time, okay, well, so do we. So I think we can be pretty comfortable that Donald Trump understands economics and is going to get us through this, and that there's a method to his activities. I will not say madness, because that's what they want to say. But if our enemies think he's mad, that's not so bad. They thought Ronald Reagan was, and we won the Cold War. I like the description of the people that were on Brett Baer's show for Musk, with Musk as musketeers. I'll tell you what they did. What they did do is point out they are very normal people and extraordinarily intelligent. A lot more intelligent than editorial writers. Holy. I mean, I've been to editorial boards in which I thought I was in kindergarten. Oh, yeah, well, let me explain to you how policing works. I mean, the guy built AirNib. I mean, it's one of the great inventions. The guy made billions of dollars, Joe Gebbia.
Airbnb?
Yeah, Airbnb. I mean, these guys are geniuses. And they're normal guys when you listen to them. But listen to what I pulled out. I tried to pull out the things that were practical, okay? So the government hasn't changed the way it processes retirement in over 70 years. We do the same thing, and we literally put them in a hole in the ground. We put all the papers in. My retirement papers are in a hole somewhere in the ground. And they'll never be able to find them. What he wants to do is digitize them. We can do that now. I digitized my papers as mayor. And then when I ran for president, my campaign manager said I was a jackass because they could find anything they wanted on me that quickly. But I'm the only mayor who ever digitized anything. Obama got money to digitize his paper. He never did it because he's got a lot to hide. I have nothing to hide. I mean, they've already investigated me 40 times over. So he's going to digitize the 400 million pieces of paper in the 22,000 filing cabinets and create an Apple-like store for government services. 15 million people over the age of 120 are still marked as alive in the Social Security system. 15 million people over 120. Now, you say, well, they're not all getting benefits. Well, we don't know how many are, and any of them at any time could be reactivated because they have a Social Security number.
Just wanted to show you a couple things from the mine where we keep our retirement records. So that was actually the bottleneck, was the time it took to get in the elevator, go down into this limestone mine and pull a dusty file off one of these shelves.
So you could only a certain number of people could retire.
Yeah, so that's
right. Yeah, we tried to limit the number of retirements like 20,000 a month or something, or 10,000.
Because speed of the elevator.
Yep.
When in fact we could retire half the government in a day, we'd be doing great.
Yeah.
We'd solve our deficit and we'd actually be efficient.
Right.
That's why it's funny. It's like, okay, let me know if you're going to retire because
give me about 2 years notice.
Yes, exactly. You can't retire.
I bet you there are a lot of times they don't find anything.
Exactly. I was going to say.
What about these 15 million people? This sounds worse than the voting records.
Right.
15 million people marked as alive over 120 years old.
Our voter rolls in Michigan are some of the worst in the country, and one of my former
Sometime
clients,
we'll do a thing like we did with Columbia and Harvard. We'll compare them to Pennsylvania.
Sure, I bet we're in the.
Do you think you guys? But you guys didn't have to steal as many votes as Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania had to steal 800,000 votes. You only had to steal about 20 or 30.
Yeah, it doesn't mean they're not.
You guys are minor league.
Doesn't mean they're not good at it.
Doesn't mean. Well, I think you're. Minor
the best
league
cheaters go where it's easiest, right? Because
I think Pennsylvania is the champion vote stealing state in the country.
That's fair. But our that requires bad voter
Well,
rolls.
Yeah, I mean,
our voter rolls are atrocious. We had Civil War
I
veterans.
told you state legislature really stunk, by the way.
Where?
In Michigan.
Oh, yeah. Well, I
think you had a bunch of backstabbers of the worst
We had
kind,
it.
including on the Republican side.
We had it for a long time. And yeah, there are a lot of rhinos. That is kind of a
But also, I think there are ones that play along with the Democrat corruption.
Yeah, well, their districts are vulnerable.
There are 4.6 million credit cards that the government has, but we have 2.4 million employees. We have 4.6 million credit cards for 2.4 million employees, many of them theoretically not being used, but alive.
What is
like
that
millions.
What does that many million credit cards look like?
I don't know.
That's like a pile of credit.
But any one of them can pull it out of the storage and go charge things on it.
Well, just think of the plastic pollution.
And since in some of these cases we don't ever do audits, we would never find out. Well, the Department of Interior wasn't audited for 5 years. They could have been paying the secretary's great grandmother,
and
who
they
has
have
a
real
social
estate.
security number.
They have real estate too, so there's a lot of like room to steal.
They have only one bank account that disperses all the money that goes out to the federal government, and roughly the estimate is there's about $500 billion worth of fraud every year, and billions of improper payments, and because we have them all in one bank account, we can't audit. We can't audit the account. We can't audit the government bank account. And it serves 580 agencies. And there's no ability to do verification. So if you are an experienced government crook, you can steal without getting caught for years. Or you can go get a couple of those dead Social Security people and get yourself Social Security. You don't think it happens? Of course it happens. This is what they're trying to stop. The computer systems are average over 50 years old, which means they're useless. They can be hacked, destroyed, changed. Now, why would anybody oppose fixing that unless you were a crook yourself? Unless you were a government employee that was crooked? Why would you oppose any of that? Why would you oppose getting the dead people off the Social Security rolls? Why would you oppose getting it down to a sensible number of bank accounts so they can be audited every year? Why would you have agencies that are so disorganized they can't be audited? You know, we gave all that money to Ukraine and didn't audit it. The second most corrupt country in the world. I don't care if they were attacked or not. That didn't stop the corruption. In fact, corruption gets worse at time of war. Did you ever hear of war profiteers?
Well, Mayor, here's a picture of some of the computers that they're running at the government. As you can see, one of the computers is about the size of that lady. So apparently, yeah, from the 1950s, it says.
I didn't even know they had computers in the 1950s. What was it? It was an abacus?
They're using COBOL. I don't know what that. It's a programming language developed by a committee in the 1950s, and they demand that the Democrats are really pushing to keep it, I guess.
Well, we're going to let the people at the Trump golf course go to bed so they can get up tomorrow morning and take care of all the golfers, and we'll see if there anybody from Tunnel to Towers still around. But thank you for tuning in tonight. Make sure you make your contribution to Tunnel to Towers. Pray that we get home and we don't get hit by lightning. And that's the clock, right? That's the famous Trump clock. That's at all of. It looks like Big Ben, doesn't it? That's at all of his golf courses and properties. There's one in Manhattan, right in front of Trump Tower.
Lightning.
Yeah. We're not creating that. Ted's not creating that. That's actually happening.
Wow. Yeah, that's wow.
More than likely, in about 4 or 5 days, Donald J. Trump, the president of the United States, will be walking up right over there and going into the dining room and getting himself some lunch among the people, talking to them.
Right there.
Signing. Does he ever refuse anybody signature? No.
Never seen it happen.
What they've done to that guy's reputation is ridiculous. He's totally different. The one good thing is when people meet him, it's like, oh my God, he's such a nice guy. Because I don't know, I think they expect him to be right. So I just gotta conclude with one thing. There's a school in Long Island, in the Brentwood Union Free School District, that had to change the name of its mascot, because its mascot, they don't give the name of the mascot, but its mascot had something to do with Native American mascot that had to be changed because it was insensitive.
Here's the old logo really quick. It's basically a letter B with some feathers on it. And yes, now the NAACP is saying that the Spartans, they're new.
Well, the new one is the Spartans. And the NAACP is now saying that the Spartan sends the message of enslaving indigenous people and excluding women from the military. Well, I guess, in fact, the Greeks did not allow women in the military. I will have to admit that. But neither did the Romans or the British or the Americans until this came along.
Almost any civilized country until quite recently.
Well, basically countries that wanted to win wars.
Yeah.
But the Greek people are, of course, a very proud people, and they are putting up a great defense. And they point out that the Spartans and the Greeks did not enslave people based on race. In fact, they basically enslaved their own people and made them servants. And that women, particularly in Sparta, were treated very differently than in most of the ancient world, including having the right to own property, and they were all educated. So they picked the wrong target. It's also kind of ridiculous to go after Spartan. Well, pray for Israel. Pray for Ukraine. Pray that the president makes the right decision because both Putin and the Ayatollah have kind of called his number, right, and said, we're not going to do what you want. And he has said there can be serious consequences. So let's pray that God gives him the right guidance on exactly what to do. I'm sure he will, and he will, capital H and small h. And we'll see you tomorrow night. God bless America. It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense. So let's do it.